Both engines were dead. The 737 was falling in silence toward the Louisiana swamps. There was no runway in reach, no time to think, and 45 lives hanging on whatever the pilot decided in the next 30 seconds. What happened next shouldn't have been possible. May 24th, 1988. Taka International Airlines Flight 11. O lifts off from Belize City on a routine scheduled hop to New Orleans. The aircraft is barely 4 months old. A brand new Boeing 737-300, one of the most modern jets in the sky. At the controls is Captain Carlos Dardano, 29 years old, with over 13,000 flight hours already in his logbook. What most people didn't know about Dardano was that he'd already survived the impossible. Years earlier, caught in El Salvador's Civil War crossfire, he lost an eye. He retrained. He flew again. He made captain. The man sitting in that left seat had already beaten death once. Beside him, First Officer Dionisio Lopez is 48 years old and has more than 12,000 hours of experience. And in the jump seat, a third pilot, a TACA instructor, was checking the performance of the new jet. The first 3/4 of the flight were completely ordinary. Passengers settled in. Coffee was served. New Orleans was less than an hour away. Then, on the radar screen, color began appearing where it wasn't supposed to be. Green meant light rain, yellow meant heavier precipitation. And those isolated red cells on either side of their path, those meant stay away. Dardano threaded the jet between the cells, trying to find the gap. The crew activated continuous ignition. Anti-ice systems came on. They were being careful. By the book, everything is right. It didn't matter. The thunderstorm hit them without warning. Not rain. A wall of it. Hail hammering the fuselage like gunfire. The engines were swallowing water and ice faster than they were designed to handle, far beyond what any certification test had anticipated. At 16,500 feet, both engines flamed out simultaneously. Every light in the cabin went out. The engines were not just struggling. They were gone. 16,500 feet. No power. No thrust. The aircraft was now a glider, a 60-ton glider, falling toward the Louisiana wetlands. At 10,500 feet, the crew managed to start the auxiliary power unit, restoring electricity and hydraulics. The plane could be controlled, but it was still falling. They attempted to restart the engines using windmill restarts, letting the airflow spin the turbines back to life. It didn't work. They tried the main starters. The engines coughed back, barely. But when the crew pushed the throttles forward, the engines overheated immediately. They shut both engines down again, deliberately, because a fire at this altitude, in this storm, would have been the end. First Officer Lopez transmitted the Mayday call. Air traffic controllers in New Orleans heard it. They offered vectors to Lakefront Airport, a smaller strip much closer. It was too far. The aircraft didn't have enough altitude left to reach it. Below them, swamps, canals, industrial waterways. A water landing was looking inevitable. Dardano lined up with the Gulf Intracoastal Waterway, a canal running through the industrial east side of New Orleans, and prepared to ditch. Then First Officer Lopez saw it, a strip of green grass running alongside the canal, a levee, narrow, wet, barely long enough, but it was grass, not water. Lopez called it out. Dardano agreed in an instant and began maneuvering, using a side-slip technique to bleed off speed and drop to the levee's level without overshooting. With no engines, no go-around, no second chance, he put it down. The wheels touched the wet grass. The aircraft rolled to a stop, intact. Passenger July. Mora, a travel agent from New Orleans, later told reporters she thought they'd simply arrived at the airport. She only realized something was wrong when she looked out the window. All 45 people, 38 passengers and 7 crew, walked away. not a single life lost. The NTSB investigation confirmed what the crew had suspected. The CFM-56 engines, despite meeting FAA certification standards, had ingested more water and hail than they were ever tested to handle. The incident rewrote aviation regulation. New water and hail ingestion standards were mandated globally, not just for TACA's aircraft, but for every jet in the sky. As for the aircraft itself, Boeing engineers flew out, changed both engines on the levee, and then flew the repaired 737 off the grass and back to the airport. The jet went on to fly for 2 more decades. It was finally retired in 2016, 28 years after the day it should have been destroyed. In 1989, a year after the miracle on the levee, investigators asked Carlos Dardano what had gone through his mind in those final seconds. He said he hadn't thought about dying. He'd thought about the levee